Hello, good afternoon. My name is Natalie, and during my presentation today, I will be talking about various topics related to sociology. I do want to thank you in advance for your time, and I hope you enjoy my presentation. Here is a quick introduction on what I will be talking about today. In section 1, we will discuss who Irving Goffman is. I will explain why Goffman believed life was like a stage through dramaturgy. We will discuss role performance, sign vehicles, teamwork, and becoming the role. In section 2, we will discuss social construction of reality, and I will also provide an example of how I apply this to my own life. Lastly, in section 3, we will be talking about what holds society together. Now let's begin. Section 1. Explain why life is like a stage according to dramaturgy. Explain role performance, sign vehicles, teamwork, and incumbent roles that hold society together. First, let's talk about who Irving Goffman is. Goffman was a sociologist. He primarily focused on microsociology, which is the study of face-to-face interactions. He was born in 1922 and passed away in 1982. Goffman's main focus was the importance of symbol and ritual in everyday life. He thought that social life is like a drama or a stage play. He wrote many books throughout his career. Stigma was a book written about deviance. Islam was based on his fieldwork inside mental hospitals, but his best-known work is the book The Presentation of Self in Every Day. This book was based off of his fieldwork study in Shetland Islands off Scotland, where he observed everyday life in the community he was in. It is in this book where he outlines his dramaturgical framework. So who was Irving Goffman? So he was known to be unclear with his sources. His fieldwork was minimal and preferred to write novels and biography over scientific observations. He was an essayist and was unsystematic. He is sometimes seen as the sociologist who developed specific form of symbolic interactionism. He was known to have a temper and was viewed as an intellectual maverick. Dramaturgy. So Aaron Goffman developed the concept of dramaturgy. The dramaturgy is an approach in which social life is analyzed in terms of drama or the stage. He had the idea that the human world was the stage and humans in everyday life were the actors in the play. He truly believed that when we are born, we are placed on the stage called everyday life, and that socialization consists of learning how to play the role based on what is assigned from other people. He analyzes social interactions as a series of theatrical performances. He thought that social situations could be manipulated by people to portray a specific impression. So how are we like actors? We perform roles. He believed that humans could choose to perform or portray a certain character or image. We use props such as symbols, the cars we drive, the books, the clothes, the furniture. We deliver lines to fellow actors, which are other humans or people we interact with, whether it's through our language, eye contact, or body language. Life is like a stage. Goffman identified that there was two sides of the stage, the front stage, which is the actual stage, and the backstage. We spend most of our everyday life on the front stage. This is where we deliver our lines and perform. The backstage is where we retreat and where we don't have to act. We can be ourselves. This is where the rehearsal and preparation takes place. Hanging out at home with your pajamas on and hair in a bun is an example of backstage. Putting on your scrubs in the morning and curling your hair is an example of front stage. But we as humans have ideas on how we want others to think of us, that we use roles to communicate those ideas. Our decisions and choices can be how we dress, how we style our hair, the body language and facial expressions we use when interacting with others, and our choices. We use impression management, which is our efforts to control the impressions that others receive of them. This is basically how we want others to perceive us. The first impression. For example, first day of school. How we want people to see us, job interview, meeting our significant others. The first time we meet our significant other's family, we want them to love us. So we portray ourselves as someone who is respectful, honest, loving, and among many other things. We can manage those impressions by what we wear, the language and body language we use, as well as our attitudes and so on. Props helps establish a scene. They add an implement to the image that we are trying to be portrayed. When I think about this, I think about an office setting. As you walk through that and look into the different offices, you can see an impression of what that person might be based on how they have their desk decorated. If someone wants to make people think that they enjoy the outdoors, they might have pictures and plants on their desk. On the contrary, you might have someone who has the most organized desk, but when you go into their home, it's chaos. This person wants to manipulate how people perceive them. Role performance. So role performance is the way in which someone performs a role, showing a particular style or personality. These are just some of the many roles one could play. One can be a grandmother, a grandfather, a niece, a nephew, a student, a teacher, a police officer, a neighbor, a coach, a soldier, a warrior, a shopper. Each of these requires you to behave and express yourself in a certain way. For example, a student is expected to come to class on time and be prepared for each lesson. If the student fails to attend regularly and is poorly prepared for each class, that is an example of them not performing their role. Role conflict is conflicts that someone feels between roles because expectations are at odds with those attached to another role. For example, someone who must be distant in one role may conflict with another role where they must show affection. Role strain is conflicts that someone feels within a role. An example of this is when the demands of one job make it so that one cannot fill their family roles adequately. Examples of role performance. So as an example, I've reflected on my own roles. My roles include being a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a girlfriend, a friend, a coworker, a student, and a medical assistant. I play each of these parts based on what is expected and what I want the impression of that role to be. What is your role? What roles do you play? Sign vehicle. So sign vehicles help people use social setting, appearance, and manner to communicate information about self. The social setting can include an office, a dorm room, a living room, a classroom, a church, a bar, or just even a scenery such as furnishing you use to communicate the message. Appearance, how you look when you play the role. Your hairstyle, the clothing, which is considered the costume, and your body figure. Are you thin? Are you skinny? Are you tall? Are you short? The color of your skin color. And lastly, manner, attitudes you show as you play your roles. The feelings, the moods, and the humor. Here's examples of sign vehicles. So in social setting, having the family picture on my desk communicates that things outside of work are important in my life. Appearances, wearing scrubs to my workplace, buying and planning a new outfit because I am meeting my boyfriend's family for the first time. And manner, nonverbal communication and facial expressions are important as a medical assistant. Going on to teamwork. Teamwork means it's the collaboration of two or more people working together to help a performance come off as planned. There's also face-saving behavior, which is techniques used to salvage a performance or interaction that is going sour. An example of teamwork is laughing at your coworker's joke even though it wasn't funny. Another example is face-saving behavior, which is, when one gets broken up with and they use, I was going to break up with her anyways. That is an example of face-saving behavior. Becoming the roles. We tend to become the role we play in. They become incorporated into our self-concept and become part of our everyday life. When one exits a role, it means that we separate from a role that is central to one's self-identity. Example is leaving a marriage, retiring from military, resigning from a career, or just simply changing religions. Roles can linger even after the individual is no longer playing that role. For example, when a person retires from service after a successful long career, they must have a transition from the role of service holder with responsibilities and deadlines to a leisurely life. Now let's move on to section 2. In this section, we're going to apply the social construction of reality to my own life. What is the social construction of reality, and how do you apply it to your own life? Please provide specific yet appropriate examples of how. Social construction of reality. This is the use of background assumptions and life experience to define what is real. Through our interaction with others, we construct reality and learn ways of interpreting our experiences in life. Thomas' theorem means if people define situations as real, they are real and their consequences. Habitualization is an action that is repeated frequently, becomes cast into a pattern, which can then be performed again in the future in the same manner and with the same economical effort. Applying it to life. So how we are raised and what we were raised to believe affect how we present ourselves and how we perceive others and how others perceive us. Applying this to my own life, there are many ways in which how I was raised and what I was raised to believe impact my views of things. For example, let's start with the simplest thing on how Monopoly is played. I grew up playing it a certain way within my family. I believed the way we played was the right way. Yet the first time I played Monopoly with friends, I was shocked to see they played it a different way. Nothing was right or wrong. It's just how each of us were raised to believe, to play the game. Another example is I was raised to believe that nothing is there and everyone has the intent in life. So I always was told to work hard for your money and be careful who you trust. Because my perception of others, that now I tend to think twice before letting someone get close. And then the very last thing I will apply social construction to is the idea that gypsies like to steal. I used to work at a shoe store and had a manager point out that most gypsies tend to want to steal, which is why every time they would come into our store, we would have to watch them. I did not believe at first that, as I was not raised to think this way, but as I encountered more and more interactions with gypsies, my interpretation and how I perceived them changed. And soon my social construction of them became reality, and I started associating gypsies with stealing. Section 3, explain in your own words what holds society together. Be sure to include specific examples to support your claims. So what holds society together? I believe that society cannot fall apart, and instead it just adapts and reforms. The main thing that reforms society is the people. They are the ones that make the choices and decisions. They create cultures, traditions, norms, set standards for behavior, and believe it on certain religious duties. I believe overall, no matter what group we're in, us humans are programmed to be good in the world, to show love and understanding. When not all humans are known to be kind, loving, and understanding, I believe majority of the population is, and this majority overrules and sets an example to those that are not. Law and order. People understand the right from the wrong. I believe laws set a standard for how society works. But again, the people are the ones who decide and choose how to bring these laws into society. COVID is a great example on how people hold society together. When COVID first began, the world and society was in chaos. People began riots, looting was taking place, and violence increased. As society that has laws, we as people understand the right from the wrong. And eventually the out of control behavior came to a stop. Those that were raised to have high morals and standards for life inspired and overpowered those that did not. Like Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, kindness is the golden thread that holds society together, and I could not agree more. As long as the majority of the people within society continue to practice and pass kindness into the next generation, our society will remain strong. Well, this concludes the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for your time.